Welcome to the Nerd Party.
I like what I call this kind of snowballing effect of storylines, and cross-cutting parallel action is a wonderful tool for a filmmaker.
Hello everybody and welcome to House of Nolan, where we go through every single Christopher Nolan directed movie and analyze, review, talk, and, kind of question the nature of his films, his characters, and maybe even a little bit of the universe. Today, we are talking about Batman Begins, and I'm so utterly excited to be talking about Batman today because he is one of my favorite comic book characters of all time, if not my absolute favorite comic book character of all time, and I cannot wait to talk about it with you guys, my co-hosts, and one of those co-hosts is Brandon Shea Mutala. How are you doing?
I'm Brandon. I'm doing really good.
I was wondering who was going to be the first one to break out the Christian Bale Batman impression. I knew it was going to be one of us or all of us. It's going to happen throughout the show.
I'm doing really good. I'm very happy to be here. I have not seen Batman Begins in a few years, so it was nice to watch it. I watched it on my HD DVD. It looked glorious. And I got a chance to watch it twice. I watched it first. I watched it with the in-movie experience. And then I watched it this morning again with just the movie. So it was pretty cool.
Very nice. Now, one of our other co-hosts is the brilliant John Mills. John, how are you doing?
I'm no rat. That's how I'm doing.
Well, you make some of us nervous, John.
If I don't take a little taste. I honestly, that I'm excited to talk about this film as well. I would say that I'm probably as big a Batman fan as you are, Tristan, and just talking about Batman Begins is it's going to be in some sense transformative because this is a film that made such a freaking impact on me that it's crazy. Like it's Batman films have had such an impact on my movie-going tastes and habits and all of that stuff throughout history. And, Batman hit in 1989 and shaped what I liked and what I loved. And then Batman Begins came in and sort of like gave a rebirth to that. So I'm super excited to talk about this film.
Yeah, everyone strap in because we're going to nerd out hard on this film.
Yes.
And so we have not only do we have a genuine love for Christopher Nolan, obviously that's why we're doing this podcast, we have a genuine love for Batman. And this is a show that we're not just gonna fanboy out. We're gonna analyze what we like and why it's good, and maybe even what doesn't work or what doesn't work for us at the time and what doesn't work for us now. Brandon, you mentioned HD DVD, and I owned this HD DVD. That was actually my first HD DVD purchase. I had an HD DVD player connected to my Xbox 360. I want to know, did you get that? Did you get Batman Begins on HD DVD when it first came out, or did you get it later as a collector?
No, I would have had it when it first came out. I used to work for an electronics store here in Regina. Like I was a really good salesman, and then I moved up the ranks and eventually became a store manager. But I started working for them in 2005, and we were right there for the format war for HD DVD and Blu-ray, and my company backed HD DVD hardcore, like to the point where right near the end of the format war, they were spiffing us $50 a player to sell an HD DVD player. So we'd get whatever commission it was, plus an extra $50 for every single HD DVD player we sold. And so these things were just flying off the shelves, like to the point where we were making more off of selling the HD DVD players that salespeople were just eating the profit off of a television by throwing in an HD DVD player, and we were still making more money. So we were just pushing these players hardcore. So honestly, I've got a ton of HD DVD movies. I mean, I've got Sopranos season 6 on HD DVD. It's crazy the amount of HD DVDs I still have. And I mean, they still all look really good. And I mean, I popped it on here and I'm like, it looks absolutely stunning. Even on my 4K 3D TV that I got from LG here, it looks stunning. But no, I was a hardcore supporter of HD DVD and lost big time on that one. the Batman Begins trailer was the first trailer I ever saw on like the Apple iTunes trailer webpage. So I was over at my friend's house visiting him, and he's like, "Have you heard there's a new Batman movie coming?" I'm like, "No." And he loaded up his computer. He had his computer projected onto the wall with a projector, and he went to this website, and I'm like, "What is this website?" And it was a website that just had movie trailers on it, and I'm like, "Oh!" And so we watched this trailer, and that was the first trailer I saw on this Apple iTunes, whatever it was, website for trailers.
You totally stole my story
Oh.
because that was how I had that same experience where like I was on dial-up and it took like an entire morning to download just 1 2.5 minute trailer, and it blew my little mind. I was just like, wow, we've never seen anything like this before. We've never seen Bruce Wayne like this before. We've never seen Batman like this before. Oh my God, this is going to be amazing. I can't wait to watch that again in 6 hours. You know, it was a lot of fun to try to get that. Now, John, I want to ask you.
Yes.
How did you first find out about this movie? Like, when did you hear about it? Did you hear about it before the trailer? Did the trailer inform you that it was happening? And on top of that, how did you first see it?
I did hear about it before the trailer came out. I plugged in early on that sort of thing, and so I paid attention to different movie magazines and the early sites and stuff like that, and so I knew there was a Batman movie coming. And I can tell you, at least in my little circle, there was a lot of skepticism about how good it was going to be. Like it was one of those things where we were like, yeah, okay, all right. And we all remembered Batman and Robin, and we were like, okay, the scars, it takes a long time to heal sometimes. And so when the trailer came out and I saw the trailer, my reaction was that hope, that sort of thing, like when you see that package of a certain size, like wrapped under the Christmas tree, and you're like, okay, I think that might be the thing I asked for, but I don't want to get my hopes up. It might not be, but I don't want to get my hopes up. I remember the movie theater I saw this at. I remember I saw it with my cousin. I remember coming out of the theater after seeing it and being in a state of, like, the only way I can describe it is almost like a state of shock. And what I mean by that is I remember my cousin saying to me, "Hey, I really like that. What did you think?" And I had this moment, and this will come up when we talk about a later Christopher Nolan film, because comic book movies were of a certain type, even by that point. And I looked at him and I said, I think I really liked it, but I have to see it again to be sure, because I didn't know how to process what I had seen. And so roll that back to the trailer. That was that sort of experience when I saw the trailer where I said, I think this could be special, but I don't know for sure. Like it was such a weird, I didn't want to give this movie anything emotionally at first. And I fought it every inch of the way.
John, I completely understand not wanting to give in to your emotions fully, like where you're just like, okay, you don't want to go all in because like, what if this sucks? Like you're just going to be devastated. And thankfully this was not the case. Brandon, now you mentioned, all the backstory about seeing the trailer and, like having the HD DVD and everything like that. Did you see it in the theater? Like, how did you first encounter this? What did you think walking out of the theater?
I remember going to see it in the theaters, and I really fell in love with it. I thought it was fantastic because I saw Batman and Batman Returns in theater, and I didn't go see Batman Forever because I didn't like Jim Carrey. And I regret it because I think Batman Forever is a really good movie. And then I saw Batman and Robin in theaters, and I regretted it because Batman and Robin is Batman and Robin. And so after Batman and Robin, I'm like, oh, this is terrible. What have they done with Batman? And so to see this as a reboot, I mean, I'm not really into superhero movies. If you listen to me over in my other podcast, Franchise Fatigue, there's a running joke. Zach's a big Superman fan and a superhero fan in general. And I'm all the time, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So Batman has always been a special place in my heart because of those original Tim Burton movies. So coming to this, I didn't know any of the backstory, any of the history of the Batman character other than what I'd seen in that movie and what Adam West had portrayed in the original 60s TV show. So I loved it. I thought it was great. because it was so different from everything that I'd seen before. You know, Tim Burton's Batman was very serious, but this was different serious. Like, this was more realistic and more real world portrayal than the original Batman was. Because, like, with Tim Burton's Batman, it's still very comic booky. They tried to put it in kind of a real world setting, but it still was very comic booky by elaborate buildings and over the top technology and stuff like that. So I really liked it, and I thought it was really cool. And I remember walking out of the theater thinking, wow. And it just blew my socks off.
Yeah, it's just this was a great theater going experience for me as well, because I was 3 when the first Tim Burton Batman came out, and I don't think I got to see Batman Forever in the theater because I think I might have still been, I can't remember exactly when it came out, but I might have been too young. But I think I remember my parents being so angry at seeing Batman Returns in the theater. Like, they hated it so much. They're like, no. Like you're not seeing Batman Forever if it's anything like Batman Returns. My first Batman cinematic experience was Batman and Robin. It was weird because I knew it wasn't going to be Batman 89. And I was expecting more of Batman Forever because, like, I watched Batman Forever on VHS until the tape broke. Like, I had the movie memorized. I loved how crazy it was, how neon it was. I loved how campy the script and dialogue was. And so I was expecting more of that. But I remember even when I was going in expecting something campy and ridiculous, walking out of the theater, I was just like, oh my God, I still can't get over George Clooney. Like, this is, my God. Now to the point, like, if I have a drink, I can watch Batman and Robin and, like, laugh at it and have a good time. But I didn't so much then. So when 2005 rolled around, I was all in. I was like, this is the movie I've been waiting for. This is going to be my Batman. I was just so utterly excited because when I found it, I was just like, wait a second. Wait, the Memento guy is gonna do this? Like, how the heck did he get the keys to the kingdom? That was one thing that really perplexed me, like, in 2004, like 2005, like when we find out about it. I was like, okay, I really like Memento, but I don't know how that would work in it. Like, I just imagined like a non-linear Batman story, which is kind of what we got. I wasn't convinced until I saw the trailer. And John, where I completely understand and respect where you came from, and that's a very mature attitude to not, like, go all in just from the trailer. I absolutely went all in. I was like, nope, this is going to be the greatest movie of all time. This is going to redefine the genre. My life will be changed. My skin will be clear. I will be free of illness. And I was like, this is my movie. Even though, like, I know that there's a lot of fanboy rage and tendencies with modern superhero movies where people already decide how they're going to like a movie, where no matter if it's a steaming pile of crap that's just thrown on the screen, fanboys are going to walk out saying that was the greatest thing ever because I decided that it was going to be the greatest thing ever 6 months ago. This was not one of those cases where, like, I was all in and I was like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. I, of course, had a rational conversation inside my own mind going, please don't suck. Please don't suck. Please don't suck. When we see the Joker card and he flies through, and we see the title and then that beat, I'm like, okay. All right, when can I see this again? Like, when in my schedule am I allowed to see this again?
See, that's funny because, I know we're going to skip around, but it's a Christopher Nolan movie, so we can do that. Like, yes. going to the ending, when he flipped that card over, I do remember that moment in the movie theater and getting that fanboy goosebump, like, hands on the person you're with sort of thing. Like, oh my God, it's a Joker card. It's a Joker card. Like, just that was, and the thing is, that when I rewatched it for our discussion here, and the thing is, Brandon, you said this was the first time you'd seen it in years, right? Like, I was talking with Tristan on text message the other night. I was like, I just rewatched this a couple months ago. I don't know if I really need to. I have it memorized already. And I found the window and I was like, fine, I'll watch it. I've watched this movie so many times, and with good reason, I think. What I think is the true testament to this, okay, taking apart, I know we're talking about this as Christopher Nolan sort of stuff, but I do think, Tristan, it's absolutely important to couch it in the approach of a fanboy and the approach of a longtime Batman fan. Like all of that type of stuff plays into it. But the simple fact that there was the restraint. Here's a key difference, right? Where you see a big win, I think, on Christopher Nolan's part is in 1989, we can't have a Batman movie without the Joker. It's an impossibility. The Joker has to be in it, and it has to be an A-list star, and it's the only thing that's going to get people in the theaters to come and see this movie. And Christopher Nolan grabs Ra's al Ghul, who's a character that the longtime Batman fans know, and Scarecrow, who's a guy that the people who watch the animated series know. But like, you know, I always use my wife as a bellwether. She has no idea who these people are. And he makes a big budget, blockbuster, franchise rebooting movie centered around two characters that most people don't even know. And it's successful and it's intriguing and it's engaging. And it's such a lesson so that when you get to that ending and you get the Joker card, it is so earned. It is absolutely justified to have that Joker card because you say, oh my God, yes, now we can have the Joker movie. Now we can go into that because we've done all of the legwork and this is all of the stuff that leads up to it. So now we can just focus on the two of them against each other. And it's such an exciting moment when he flips that card over. And even the way that the conversation is structured and the way that Gary Oldman plays it, where he says, you know, like we get semi-automatics, they get automatics. We get bulletproof vests, they get armor-piercing rounds. And you're dressed in a mask. You know, and here's a guy, flair for the theatrical, like you. Like there's already that setup of, is Batman going to be the cause of things to be worse before they get better? It's such a brilliant and amazing thing. And I know I've rambled on at this point, but you can tell that moment was really the moment that was such an incredible reward to fans. Like the whole Batman Begins is such a love letter to the longtime fans. And that's just the cherry on top of the sundae at the end. I will stop rambling now.
See, coming into this as a person who didn't know the Batman history, I thought it was really interesting, and I did really appreciate the story, and I did appreciate that the Joker wasn't in this, and it gave some of the history onto how Batman became Bruce Wayne, because in the original Batman, we don't really see that, in the 1989 Batman. The one thing that I did find really strange was that they retconned the story and that the Joker didn't kill his family. I'm teasing you guys.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. I fell right for it.
Oh,
Sorry.
boy, those fingers popped up right there.
Both John and I were just like we were mid drink, like no.
But no, I as a fan of this movie, as a fan of the other ones as well, I did appreciate the fact that they did take their time. I love everything that you said there, John, by building up. And I at the end too, when he started talking about it, as soon as he said flair for the dramatic, I knew they were going for the Joker. And then he hands him the card, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is going to be really cool, because I didn't know that they were planning on doing sequels at the time. I wasn't involved in the fandom and reading up on this. I just knew that this movie was out, and that's all I knew.
I've heard conflicting reports throughout the years about a planned trilogy versus just doing a one-off, because like I watched an interview. I need to try and find it, but I know that I've watched an interview with Chris Nolan where he said, oh yeah, when we made Batman Begins, we had no idea that we were going to make a second and third one. And to me, I'm just kind of like, how is that possible to create and reboot a franchise and not expect that you're going to make a second and third one? Was it a thing where it's just like, oh, we don't know if we're going to be successful, or what? Like, John, what do you got going on there?
I know the interview you're talking about, and he also wrote it in the notes to one of the editions that was released, where he admitted, he said, we had ideas for sequels, but it all rode on whether Batman Begins was successful. So he was at least honest enough to say, you know, we had ideas, but we weren't fooling ourselves into thinking, like nowadays, it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to get 3 movies. It's what's signed in the contract. The Star Wars movies are being rebooted. It doesn't matter if episode 7 or episode 8 suck. You're going to get episode 9 no matter what. Eat it. It's a different approach with Batman Begins, where they said, we had ideas. We knew where we would want to go, but we threw everything we could into the first movie. And, you know, to speak to that point, like one of the things, and we'll get to this when we get to The Dark Knight, he wanted to destroy the Tumbler in the first movie, but he couldn't find a way to make it work. So we know that that was an idea where when they said, okay, you're going to get a sequel, Chris, he says, okay, great, I can blow the Batmobile up. Awesome.
We watched this, my wife and I watched this last night, and she's a huge Nolan fan. She's a huge Batman fan. And so she loves analyzing this stuff. And one question that she had for me was like, why wasn't Katie Holmes in the second one? And I said, oh, she decided to do another movie that no one ever watched and no one will ever hear of in 5 years and that you haven't heard of now. She's like, well, she didn't sign a contract. And I said, 2005 was a much more innocent time. Like now it is that's unheard of today. Like you get a concept just to read the script. You have to sign a trilogy deal.
And there is also a rumor, no idea if it's true, again, couching it purely as speculative rumor. There has been a speculative rumor for years. Remember, Katie Holmes was involved, I guess she was married by that point, to Tom Cruise. And there was a speculative rumor for years that because she had had a sex scene with Aaron Eckhart, who played Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight, that Tom Cruise put his foot down and said, no, you're not doing another movie with him. That is the rumor, which purely seems to be perfectly constructed to play into the idea that Tom Cruise was a controlling jerk in their relationship. But I just wanted to put it out there that rumor, again, I'm not saying I subscribe to it, but that rumor was out there.
So what you're saying is that that's wholly what you believe, and Tom Cruise is a monster in your eyes. Okay,
I'll stand by it in court. That's what I just said.
Okay.
Yes.
It's interesting. Like it's so crazy that a deal like a trilogy deal wasn't thrown down with all the actors. But I mean, like even when you get to 2009, so like in 2007. When they started approaching actors for Star Trek, the reboot in Star Trek. So even just a couple years after that, you have people signing trilogy deals. And you have to think that, oh, wait, like this is maybe this had something to do with it. Like that maybe this invigorated the whole, like just the whole blockbuster franchise of these sci-fi / fantasy / comic book movies. And one thing that I always suspected but never had confirmed until I started researching it a little while ago, was that the producers and owners of the James Bond franchise, the Broccoli's, they saw what Christopher Nolan was doing with Batman Begins and were like, oh, we should do that. And that's how Casino Royale came about.
I'd buy that for sure.
That's so crazy to me that if it wasn't for Chris Nolan directing Batman Begins, we wouldn't have Casino Royale necessarily. I think that's crazy.
And what's crazy about... I agree with you, Brandon. I believe it as well. And what's especially crazy about that is when you layer in the fact that we all know Christopher Nolan is a huge James Bond movie fan, and you can start now when he gets on this scale and when he gets a character like this, you can see in Batman Begins a James Bond movie fan working. You have a Q in the situation. You have a Bond himself. You have a mentor. Alfred is kind of like, like his sector chief and stuff like that, where it's like all of these things very much fit into place in terms of the structure. And what's crazy, it's almost as if Christopher Nolan, by getting in there and as a fan making his James Bond movie in Batman Begins, winds up blocking himself out from making a James Bond movie, which he would want to do. And I almost wonder if there are nights where he lays awake in bed thinking to himself, if only I hadn't done that. If only I hadn't done that.
And then he rolls over and wipes his tears and blows his nose in $100 bills. He's like, if only I didn't make
and then
the most successful comic book trilogy of all time.
And then he hands it to his butler, who looks like he's been surgically altered to look like Michael Caine, and says, throw this out.
Yeah, when you see, like, Brandon, just like you said, like when you see Casino Royale, you're just like, oh, that 100% makes sense. It's like, in John, like what you're saying, like when you look at Batman Begins, you're like, oh, that's a comic book Bond movie. And when you look at Casino Royale, you're like, oh, that's a James Bond Batman movie. but they work so well, especially for the time that it was released, for the time that it was made. It just, for a sentimentalities during that era, we needed this kind of grit.
Mm-hmm.
We needed this dark, shadowy figure to avenge. And this is, what do you guys think of Christian Bale's interpretation of Bruce Wayne, but more importantly of Batman? Because Christian Bale has gone on record saying that he wanted to portray Batman as a rage monster, that someone that like just a psychotic bundle of anger that is just a terrifying entity to criminality, and that he was always crouching. And when you look at other Batmans, when you look at West, Keaton, Kilmer, not even going to mention the other guy, when you look at those interpretations, and I'm not necessarily talking about Nolan's interpretation of Batman, I'm talking about the actor's interpretation. Where do you think that falls, and where do you see the major contrast, Brandon?
So this is tough. Like, my first Batman is Adam West, because when we were kids, we would go to my grandma and grandpa's lake cabin, and we would watch Batman Monday to Friday when we were out there for a couple weeks at a time, and that was our thing. We watched that. So that was my introduction to Batman. I did see Batman 89 and Batman Returns in theaters, and so that kind of was a really interesting turning point for me, because that was like kind of the first really grown-up movie that I'd seen at the theaters. Because I was 8 when I saw Batman in the theaters. I do think that they all have a valid interpretation, and while I'm not a big James Bond fan, really, I think that this is probably how James Bond fans feel. They're like, which is the James Bond? Which is your James Bond? Because I think all these actors bring something different to them. I really like Christian Bale's performance of Batman, but the interesting thing is, I really don't like Christian Bale as an actor at all. Like, I think he's over the top. I think he's kind of ridiculous, but I think he really fits this role. I mean, I'm not a fan of Christian Bale in any way, shape, or form. So it's tough for me because he's so good here. And this is how I think Batman should be played, because he's had such a dark past.
John?
I think that I love Bale's interpretation of the character. I think that, to speak to the way you kicked off this part of the conversation, I don't see a rage monster, but I see somebody who has a lot of, and I guess this ties into it, a lot of pain motivating. I can see that tension within him. He does have a very facial, he's very good at expressing facially what's going on inside his character at certain moments. And I think particularly of when Joe Chill is assassinated and he has that look on his face and Rachel says, "You don't need to see this." And he says, "Yes, I do." I think that a lot of ways where I see that rage monster, quote unquote, come out is, yes, his physicality, the crouching, the way he's crouching when Rachel sees him, when he's saved her on the subway platform, or the way that he leaps off of things, or the way that his face contorts when he's telling, when he says, "Swear to me," right? I believe that this guy is conscious of how close he is to the edge. Brandon, just because you brought it up, my first Batman also was Adam West. And on summers when it was too hot to go outside, because I grew up in the Mid-Atlantic region, and yes, in August, it was hell on earth outside. And so the repeats on the UHF station that I watched were The Monkees and Batman. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing else worth watching that was on, because I didn't want to watch soap operas or talk shows or anything like that. If you look at the physicality of Batman coming up to Christian Bale, they were always very stout, broad-shouldered, walking in assuredly, the way that we almost picture Superman in our heads. Whereas Bale does crouch. Bale does seem to inhabit that sort of more animalistic, interpretation.
Almost like a Wolverine.
Right. Yes. Spot on. Exactly.
For me, I never connected with Adam West Batman. Not at all. Didn't really. I couldn't even tell you if I watched an entire episode all the way through. Mm-hmm. I just never enjoyed it. I'm not one of those guys who makes fun of it or like I dismiss it. I think it has a huge cultural impact. It just wasn't for me. Batman the Animated Series for me was really my childhood Batman, and Kevin Conroy was actually the first person to kind of have that duality of voice and personality between Bruce Wayne and Batman, and I think he gets the credit for that, and he deserves it, because even though Batman the Animated Series was heavily influenced by Batman '89, and even so much that they use the same theme music, Michael Keaton really just kind of whispers, like he doesn't change his voice, he just kind of he just keeps his voice down as Batman and tries to speak very little. Like, he's psychotic, there's like that kind of thing. So it's hard for me to say, because I loved and love Batman '89, even from a young age. I like Keaton in my head. Keaton is kind of my live action Batman in my head. Like when I'm reading comics, I'll see, if I try to imagine, I usually see Keaton going about, but I hear Kevin Conroy when I read the speech bubbles. So that's kind of where my foundation was. And I'd read the comics like crazy, like all the classics. But with Bale's interpretation, I think he was the first one to really nail both parts in my head, where I really enjoyed seeing him as Bruce Wayne and as Batman. While I love Keaton, I never really thought there was anything too particularly special about his Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
That's not so much a criticism. I mean, I think he did a great job. I think he did a fine job, but there was nothing unique about it. But there was something unique about his Batman. And with Kilmer, even though I like Batman Forever, I mean, like, you're not there. It's not a Val Kilmer movie. It's a Batman movie. You know what I'm saying? Even though Christian Bale describes it as a rage monster, and that's how he played it, and he also said that the suit was incredibly difficult to wear. Like, he said it was almost like torture, and it would give him monstrous headaches all day. And so he tried to funnel that headache into his performance. And I feel like the rage monster aspect goes down as the movie goes forward, because when he first appears, like on the docks, beating up folks and like headbutting Falcone, then later on we see him interrogate Flass. Like, I think that's where the rage monster comes out the hardest, but it definitely tempers as it goes forward. And because, like, when you look at that, that they not only is Bale like screaming in that guttural voice that he does, but like the audio engineer definitely amped it up and transcoded it a little bit, messed with the EQ. And I love that moment specifically because he's dealing with a dirty cop. I know that Batman gets a lot of hate in modern culture, and also modern historical culture, of he's a mindless white privileged vigilante who beats up minor offenders and like sends them to the hospital. While that can be true, like I saw one person going off, and it was like something that got like retweeted like tens of thousands of times. It was insane, about like how like they need to retool the Batman franchise. Like, John, do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
I do.
You saw the same
I
thing?
remember. Yeah, you and I actually we both sort of like were tormented by it, specifically because Batman has always functioned as, for lack of a better, I'm just sort of like throwing stuff together in my head, historical references, but sort of like Teddy Roosevelt in the Batman costume. Like, Teddy Roosevelt was known for coming into New York and kicking ass to clean up the New York police department and the corruption that was in there, for a time, because it's New York, it came back. But like, Teddy Roosevelt came in, and that is what he made his reputation on. And I think it's very, very important. Nolan leans very heavily into the fact that Gotham is corrupt from top to bottom. And the reason that a Batman is necessary is because the institution has been infiltrated by corrupt individuals. And so Batman is an antidote to what the problem is. That is even spoken to specifically in the ending when, Katie Holmes as Rachel says to him that, just to paraphrase, like, you're going to be Batman until they don't need Batman anymore. And so the sense is like, God knows when that's going to be. And so I think that any sort of reductionist thing where you take Batman down to an enforcer of, like police brutality or something like that is insane, because Gordon is the first scene we meet Gordon. He is refusing to take the bribe and getting chastised for it. And he says, who would I complain to? Who's left? Right? I'm going to do what I can where I am. What am I going to do with that information?
I want to piggyback off of that real quick, because I think that scene hits so many different levels within the Batman fandom, within the mythology, as well as what Nolan is bringing to the table. Because like what I mentioned before about how like modern critics say like, oh, well, we need a Batman that'll go after corrupt cops since in real life there's so many corrupt cops. And I'm like, have you seen the Batman franchise? Mm-hmm. Like, have you seen the Nolan trilogy? Because in that scene that you're referencing, John, where he says like, who would I report to? Who would I go to? In that, even though we're showcasing, oh, Gordon's a good cop because he's not on the take, we're also showing the duality of the police force in Gotham as well as in real life, where the good cops who turn a blind eye to the bad cops are themselves a bad cop. And that is the beauty and the tragedy of Gordon that we see bite him in the ass in the third movie.
Right.
And it's just such a beautiful arc about how, yeah, we all see Gordon as the super cop, but he starts off as a dirty cop. Maybe dirty cop is a bad phrase, but he's complicit with dirty cops. And that in itself is a negative feature for today's police force as well as Gotham. And that's why the Batman is needed.
I would not call him complicit. I'd call him defeated. He is very obviously, and I think that Oldman's performance, I think that the person who doesn't ever get enough credit in Batman Begins is Gary Oldman, because I see Gordon as somebody who is defeated, somebody who there's that idealism, because like the first time we meet Gordon, he's embracing Bruce Wayne and letting him know everything. You know, he's trying to be a good person to him. And who knows, maybe the police department wasn't quite so bad back then. And so it was like, okay, I can make some change from the inside. So when we are reintroduced to him, he's not in there, he's sitting in the car, and it's a guy who feels trapped, right? I think that that Nolan does a tremendous job of structuring the film in such a way of showing how much hope somebody like Batman gives to Gordon, because Gordon believes, oh, wow, that now things can change, things can get better, because there is at least one person I can trust that's out there. And the thing is, it even starts rocky. And this is the thing, again, to get back, I know I mentioned this back when we talked about the Joker thing, but there are so many things baked into this movie where a longtime fan would look at it and say, oh, that's like the series Batman Year One, right? Where Gordon is, again, in the corrupt police department, and then a guy in a ski mask shows up and is like, well, what's going on here? And okay, maybe there's a reason to hope again. I think that what gets plugged into is, in terms of the structure of the story, you have something that takes all of the best aspects of that mythology that's been built over, 8 decades. Then you have somebody, and I think this needs specific call out, is Nolan comes into it not only as a James Bond fan, and he has specifically said this, so this is not a unique thought on my part, where he was specifically making call out to the 1978 Superman. Because Metropolis, when Superman shows up in 1978, it's a little bit more Silver Age comic booky sort of thing, but Metropolis is messed up the way that Gotham is. But Nolan takes that sort of systemic issue sort of thing and reroutes it in something that we can relate to, that we can understand. And the dirty cops aspect, and I know I'm rambling, I'm going to wrap it up, I promise to God, I'm sorry. But the dirty cops aspect goes all the way back to the 1989 Batman, where you have dirty cops in that, and Batman is working against them. And it's, Commissioner Gordon is the one that says, oh my gosh, we've got it. Like the difference, I think, or similarity, I guess, is that there are people in positions of power who want to change things. They just can't get their hands around it. And so Batman becomes this free radical agent that changes the equation and throws things out of balance in their favor so that they can take advantage of it. And I think that Nolan leaning into his purposeful fandom of the 1978 Superman and recasting Batman as somebody who doesn't want to just go out and kick criminal ass because of the fact that he's mad that his mom and dad died, but as somebody who wants to provide a symbol so that everybody behaves better. I think that is one of the most amazing aspects of this film.
There's a commercial that always resonated with me, and it was, I can't remember which video game it was, but it was a video game in the Arkham series, which is some of the best interpretations of Batman I've ever seen, even in cartoons and comics and on screen, is the Arkham trilogy. The whole campaign was be the Batman. Like, that was their tagline. It was just be the Batman. And so you would see several different people in scenarios where, like, you saw, like, one guy saw a person getting mugged. He could have ran away. He could have ignored it. But then it was, no, be the Batman. Or, like, it was even simpler stuff where it was like giving up your seat on the subway. You know, like, it was stuff like that. It was an inspiration to be good, not just go and kick the crap out of somebody, but the inspiration to be something better.
It's funny. A long running joke with some friends of mine is I wrote a blog many, many years ago called, and it was totally tongue in cheek, called I Am Batman, because of the fact of something that I surfaced to just try to get people to change something that was happening. And I love that sort of thing. The beauty of this film, I think this all ties into the beauty of this film of Christopher Nolan knows what he is trying to accomplish in this. And I think that is a really key difference between this Batman and other Batman characterizations. Is I think that Tim Burton inherits a script that is an R-rated script and he turns it into a PG-13. A lot of people see it as a PG script that he turns into PG-13 with his weirdness, but I honestly think he pulls it back. You have then the Joel Schumacher more 1960s interpretation of it, and then you leap past Christopher Nolan and you have Zack Snyder's take on the character. But Christopher Nolan, specifically as a director, comes in here with a mission statement to create a superhero movie that is a natural inheritor of the concept of the superhero that we all want, that every single person wants to feel this way coming out, inspired to be a better person and to be an agent of change in a positive way, in whatever small way that they can in the life that they lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Brandon, what do you think of that?
I think that you guys are way more into this than I am, and I'm enjoying listening to you guys because, like, I've seen this movie 4 times now. I saw it in theaters, I saw it on HD DVD, and then I watched it twice this week. And I mean, like, I can't bring this kind of discussion to it because, like, you're reaching into the next two. I've only seen Dark Knight Rises once. I saw it in theaters and didn't like it, right? So I'm looking forward to the rewatch.
I'm looking forward to that kind of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That awesome. I cannot wait for that.
I'm agreeing with what you guys are saying here, but even with the Batman history, like, I don't know that much about him. I've read a lot of the comics, because after these movies came out, I actually started to read, Batman Year One, the Frank Miller one, and the sequel. I can't remember the names of all of them, but I've got them all. I read them all once, and I'm like, okay, this is great. I like some Batman. But again, I didn't stick around with it. It's not like comic books are not really my thing, but Batman's probably my favorite. Like, you had mentioned Kevin Conroy and the animated series. I haven't seen any of the animated series.
You should.
Oh, it's so good. It's so, and I'm not just saying that as like a fanboy or as a Batman fan. They are surprisingly well crafted stories.
Yeah, please see the movie Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. It's one of the best Batman movies that's ever been made. Sorry, just.
I've got the score. I got the score from La La Land Records.
So okay.
Shirley
Speaking
Walker's
of which, score is great.
Yeah,
we need to talk about the score. We need to talk about this music because while Danny Elfman did something so utterly fantastic in 1989, something that just has reverberated throughout comic book movies and our culture and the zeitgeist, Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard I mean, Brandon, you got to have an opinion about that. You got to have an opinion about
I
this
love
music.
this score. This score hits the feels like this is kind of like a redefining score. Like once this score came out, modern movie scores changed. Like this is a common tone, like these blaring, metal, what are the tubas and French horns? What do they call that? The brass. Sorry, the brass is the word I'm looking for. This moves on to other scores where people can take what's been done here and improve upon it, like Tron Legacy, which I think is one of the greatest scores of the century so far, and will always be one of the greatest scores of the century. But this kind of sound and these droning and this repetitive low, like pulsing sounds that you're getting out of this music changed movie scoring and put it on a new path.
Yeah, this was there's that specific beat that just resonates throughout the entire trilogy and also my mind. Is when I think it was the first time we hear it was when as at the docks. It's the first time we see him as Batman, although we don't really see that fight. We just kind of see some flash fighting and some flash editing, and then they're all on the ground. And then like he moves his leg just a little bit and we hear, like that beat. We all know which one I'm talking about. And that I think is probably, I really hate, because I'm going to sound super hyperbolic, but like just those couple of beats has had such an impact in comic book movies, superhero movies, and high octane trailers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just what Zimmer and James Newton Howard did with this is just with the simplicity of just those bass beats, as well as the complicated orchestral brass and everything like that. Hans Zimmer brought on James Newton Howard. I think Nolan went to Zimmer, and then Zimmer said, I've always wanted to work with Howard, and I think it would be good because you'll have two people working on it with two different personalities, just like the duality of Batman. That is the kind of intricate story-woven decision-making behind music that I really respect. I feel like this is the starting point for the rest of Nolan's career,
mm-hmm.
in terms of music, and also probably everything else. Cinematography. He found his font that he really likes.
Yeah, he sure did. Ironically, Gotham. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think he picked this font just to be cheeky, and then he realized that it was like, oh no, this is right. You know what? I have no. I think it's very possible. Yeah. And the thing is, this has been nothing but a love fest, and appropriately so, because this is a movie. And the thing is, when I wrote my recent review, I was like, I always go back and forth between 4.5 and 5 stars with this. And what I always struggle with a movie this excellent is, let me throw this philosophical sort of thought question struggle out there, is when a movie is this close to perfect, does it throw its imperfections? Do those stand out more? And so because you love it so much, I know that I come at it with an attitude of, I have to find flaws, that I have to find something to justify some sort of crack in the facade here. And
You're
and
a
one of
bad
the
person.
Things, probably, but for many other reasons. But no, but seriously, because the thing is, I think that there's a reflex of not wanting to be called quote unquote fanboy. You want to prove that you can be critical of the things that you love. And so for me, I come into this film and it's not even motivated by that, but there are certain moments where the one-liners are a little bit forced. And the
trailer liners.
Yeah. Like
I've got to get me one of those.
Oh man, my eyes. I see brain. I roll my eyes so hard on the car jokes in this movie, man. Like, oh my goodness.
You know what really kills me is all of a sudden the homeless guy is standing there when he's beating up, Falcone, and he's like, "Nice coat, thanks." And it's like, oh gosh, just
why is that there?
Yeah, exactly.
Why is that there? There is no reason for that to be there.
But
This guy's like a famous actor too, that guy. Like, I've seen him in a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Well, like, he's not so famous in the States, but
Foreign
over in
stuff,
Europe,
yeah.
like he's really well known and really respected, and yet he just plays like the homeless guy with 3 lines in America.
It's so weird.
But for me, the biggest hurdle with this film is the ending of it is the scale. This is Nolan again, and I keep coming back to this point. You see him stretching with each successive film. He's pushing the boundaries of what he can do. And it's the ending of this where the scope of it feels just a little bit, just at his fingertips. He hasn't quite gotten there yet in terms of the scale of the action and the flow of everything. And I want to know, am I off base? Because, and Brandon, I'll throw this to you because you've already called me a bad person tonight. So that's fine. Am I reaching? Am I looking too hard for the flaws?
I don't know. It's just that that's one of the things about fandom that like kind of irks me a little bit. It's like when you love something, it's like love your fandom. I give Ernest Goes to Camp 5 stars because I love that movie. It makes me feel good when I watch that movie. And that means a lot to me. And this movie here, I give this movie 5 stars, and we'll jump to that like in a little bit here. Even though those jokes with the car make me roll my eyes so hard. Like when he forces the Batmobile into that compact car stall, I'm like, God, give me a break, right? But I mean, that doesn't
I thought that was funny.
Take away from the enjoyment of the movie. It's just something that they're throwing into the movie, And I mean, I personally think that the Batmobile is completely ridiculous in these movies, right? My Batmobile is the 1989 Batmobile. Like, this tank thing is ridiculous, but that's also okay. But those things don't take away from it. So your fandom is like, you know what? I want to be able to look at this a little bit more critically. Then that's fine as well. There is nothing wrong with that. It's just when you're like, I love this movie so much that I have to find a flaw. It's like, oh, come on. Just love it. Just love it.
I think it's interesting because we all come from different schools of thought when it comes to our rating system and even how we love stuff and why we love stuff and looking for flaws or not looking for flaws or accepting flaws, because you rating Ernest Goes to Jail 5 stars.
Ernest Goes to Camp, not Ernest Goes to Jail. Hold your horses here.
Oh, excuse me. All right.
Now you're talking crazy.
Apologies. One of my favorite Halloween movies of all time is Hocus Pocus. I watch it every year. I love it. I love so much about it, and it's just a warm blanket to me. But it is very much not a 5-star movie. The protagonist is a horrible actor. He's a horrible character. I fast forward his scenes when it's just focused on him. And so the movie's really only like 45 minutes long when I watch it. But I could never rank it 5 stars for that reason. Like, even though I love it, it's in my bones, and I quote it with my family constantly, I would never be able to rate it 5 stars. Now, I can love something as if it was 5 stars, but I could never rate it. And like oftentimes, if you see a Letterboxd movie posted on my feed and it just has a heart next to it, it means because I refuse to rate it because I love it and I don't want to rate it.
That's okay too, because I mean, I'm known online and people joke because I'm constantly talking about Children of the Corn 4, and I love Children of the Corn 4, right? But I don't rate that thing 5 stars because it's a trashy film, right? I give it a 3-star rating because it's not very good, but I love it as if it's a 5-star. So I know what you're talking about. Absolutely.
But see, here's the thing, and here's where I think it's interesting, because I think there was a specific conversation several years ago that sort of like broke me in a certain way, because somebody sort of rode my keister about the fact that I responded emotionally to something, and they were very dismissive of it, and I think that sort of warped my approach to it. But Brandon, I think I do need to adopt that, because there is an aspect of this, and this is to tie it back to the whole Nolan thing, is people have criticized Nolan for sterility in terms of the emotion and stuff like that, which I think is completely bonkers. But there is one scene in this film that makes me cry every single time. Not like tears rolling down my face sort of thing, but like watered up, choked up sort of like emotional moment to it. And I'm not going to tell anybody which one, but because it would surprise you which one it was. But there is one that hits me every single time. And I think you're right, Brandon. I think I do just need to own it and just go ahead and give this 5 stars, because any film that can reach in and speak to a cathartic feeling that somebody needs like that, I think speaks to what an incredible skill that this director, Christopher Nolan, has for connecting with somebody in such a way that is not cheap, that is not shorthand, but actually construct something in such a way where it makes you think for a moment, I'm not crazy for feeling this way. It makes sense. And so, yes, I'm going to go back and I'm going to re-edit this in my Letterboxd review. This is getting 5 instead of 4.5. Thank you. You're absolutely right.
I love it.
Wow. Brandon has totally just like seeped into your mind, and next thing you're going to know, you're just going to start throwing out 5 stars left and right like parking tickets.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
So for me, Batman Begins was my favorite of the Nolan trilogy for a while. Even after I saw The Dark Knight, I would have long conversations with my wife about which one's better, which one's your favorite, and I would hold fast to Batman Begins. I'm like, nope, Batman Begins, that's my favorite, that's the best one. She just kept talking about how it was crazy. She said, she's like, no, and you're like, you're not only are you wrong, you're lying to yourself. It's interesting because I have come around where The Dark Knight is my favorite, but Batman Begins definitely holds a special place in my heart for what it opened the door for. I rate this one 4.5 stars because there's a few things that perturb me and that doesn't quite reach the 5-star mark. Now, here's the kicker, and this is where it doesn't make sense. I think there's more wrong with The Dark Knight than there is with Batman Begins, but yet The Dark Knight is a 5-star film for me. Because I think what The Dark Knight gets right, it gets so right, where it's phenomenal and mind-blowing. And where it gets wrong is you're like, oh, okay, all right, I'll try to suspend my disbelief here. But it's severely like what it gets right is outweighs what it gets wrong. With Batman Begins, there's a few things that are a few sins that I'm just kind of like, okay, come on. Like some of the trailer language, where they clearly threw that in just to edit in the trailer. The editing on this film is by far inferior to The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, specifically the fighting editing. It is trash. Nolan has even gone on record to say that he regrets the editing style that he chose for Batman Begins and thus tries to correct it in The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. You can really see a huge difference in the editing for the fighting, because when he's on the docks and he's hanging upside down and then that first fight, I think that's well edited. It's flash editing, it's flash fighting, but it's well edited because you don't really see his face, you don't really see his costume, and you see a lot of leg work, and it's really just to build up that momentum and build to that moment of his reveal of him saying, I'm Batman. That makes sense. But the problem is that every fight scene after that is done like a Transformers film where you can't really see what's going on.
Yes.
And it's just kind of like, oh my God, you're blinking so much. You're just like, what is going on? And then you contrast that with the Bane fight in The Dark Knight Rises. That is in very long takes and very wide angles where you can see everything that's going on and see every punch land. Because in Batman Begins, you don't really see any punch land in the entire film. And he knocks out a lot of people, but yet you never see him land a punch. For that, I cannot give it 5 stars because of that editing. And I know this is silly. I know this is silly because we're talking about a movie where a guy is flying around in a cape. But the whole science behind the microwave emitter, oh my God.
You're nuts. Nope. I ignore you.
Okay.
Nope. I've stopped listening.
The microwave emitter, if that worked, everybody would evaporate. We're made of water.
I
and
don't care.
Also the whole chain reaction. How does that make sense?
Who cares?
How would we get a chain reaction if we went to the hub and go out to the
It's fine.
How?
Nope.
How?
It's fine. It makes sense. Nope.
I have never once thought about that ever. That's never crossed my mind.
One thing I do want to throw out there, and it was something I really fixated on with this, is one of the most interesting things about DC comic book hero movies is the scale of their destruction always seems to be extremely large. And Zack Snyder carries a special, like he carries a scarlet letter around his neck for the scale of destruction that happens in Man of Steel. And then they even dedicate lines of dialogue in Batman v Superman to be like, this is not taking place around people. It's okay. But even at the end of this film, that, like, I'm sitting there watching it. I'm like, man, as this subway is falling over, like they got to be killing tons of people, right? Like,
and also like with the evaporation, like where the aerosol's going up, like like it's confined on the narrows, but then like the subway goes from the narrows to the heart of the city, so that one stretch of street, like that's basically half the city. All those people are going to go insane, and if they they said it was going to take weeks to develop.
They renamed that section of the city Crazy Town, and it was fine. Well, I mean, at the very least, they refer to the narrows as lost at the end of the film and everything like that. So there's at least an acknowledgement of the cost of everything. Whether that's good, I don't know, but like, it's still one of those things where I find it so interesting because people are so selective with their outrage about the amount of damage that's caused in a film. And if I were to take the ending of Batman Begins, yes, the destruction on the scale in Man of Steel is larger, but at the very least in Batman v Superman, the very beginning of the film sort of deals with that idea of how horrific it was. Whereas when we go from Batman Begins to The Dark Knight, it's like, yeah, that happened last movie. Don't worry about it. And it's just one of those things where I don't have a problem with it. This is comic book. This is large scale, crazy stuff, whatever. And I just think it's interesting that Batman Begins always skirts that criticism, that are thrown at other movies in the DC universe.
Speaking of like the aerosol scene and everything like that, so did you guys notice the technician at the water treatment center or plant or whatever? Not the gray-haired guy, but the guy who announced that trouble was brewing. Did you guys recognize him?
No, I don't.
He was the lead in Following.
Oh,
Okay.
No kidding. No, I
Okay.
didn't catch that. I mean, I knew that the investigator who questioned him was on the board of Wayne Enterprises, but no, I didn't catch that.
That's Christopher Nolan's uncle.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Yes. And also the woman who was sitting at the table at the hotel saying, well, we have to admit that the Batman did give us Falcone, like that rich socialite woman who was like the only other woman in the film besides Rachel Dawes. She was the female lead in Following.
Oh
my gosh.
Wow,
Oh yeah. No,
okay.
I didn't even catch that. Catch that.
Well, there you have
And
it.
we'll be able to talk about after this how this Batman Begins started Christopher Nolan's lifelong love affair with Michael Caine as an actor.
Yes,
So,
oh boy.
There you go.
Well, yeah, like Michael Caine signed on to play for this film because of Nolan. Like he sought out to work with Nolan because he loved his previous work so much. So Caine actually went to Nolan and said, like, I want to work with you.
Oh, that's awesome.
And ever since then, they've been like, okay, let's figure out how we can work together, continue to work together.
I like that. I do. I'll admit I have a weakness for it. I love the fact that this is the origin point of knowing that Michael Caine will always be in a Christopher Nolan film. No matter how big the part, he will be there.
All right. Well, I think I could go on for another hour easily, but I think we need a round third here. Like this movie was so unique for, I have to say, at least for John and I, just because we're such huge Batman fans, that we didn't ask the normal Nolan questions that we do, like with the cinematography and with where we see Nolan. Like, where did you see Nolan with this? So Brandon, answer that question for me. Where did you first see Nolan in Batman Begins?
You know what? You pointed it out for me actually in Insomnia, where I saw it here, and it's the helicopter shots that we get in this. Like,
Right.
it is something that is. It's something that we basically see in every Nolan film, going forward, at least, and it's just something that it the way that it's done, if the speed of how it's going, it just feels like, okay, this is done by this guy, So I would say it's probably there.
That's my answer too. John.
It's going to sound really weird, but the scene in the beginning where young Bruce Wayne falls through the well and is falling toward the camera, I can't quite put my finger on it. Maybe it's the way it's lit. Maybe it's the speed at which it plays. But seeing him fall toward the camera, for some reason, I look like if you showed that to me blind and I'd never seen this film, I'd look at it and say, that looks like a Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah, I can get that. I can see that. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for listening. Thank you so much for subscribing. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to listen to all of our backed episodes. I think it's safe to say that so far with Christopher Nolan's films, I'm putting Batman Begins on top. So for me, it would go Batman Begins, Memento, Insomnia, following.
Yep.
Ditto.
Same.
John?
Yep.
That's same across the board?
Exactly
All
right. Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, everyone, please go to thenerdparty.com for all of your Nerd Party needs. We've got new stuff coming at you every single day of the week. We've got Star Trek shows, Star Wars shows, TV, movies, Babylon 5, Doctor Who, Harry Potter. We got something for everyone. Please check it out. And also, you can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just search for us. You'll find us. You're smart. You know where to go. You know how to find people and find accounts. Brandon, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Matella. I've got a couple of podcasts on my own network called the United Federation of Podcast Network. One show is called Infinite Diversity, which is a Star Trek podcast where we're covering new Star Trek. And the other one's called Franchise Fatigue, where we cover movies, remakes, and sequels. And then I also have my monthly Hitchcock podcast called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast that I do with my friends Chris and Tom. And we go over Hitchcock's work, just as we're doing here with Christopher Nolan.
Fantastic. John?
Look for Kessel Junkie on your social network of choice, KESSELJUNKIE. More active than I should be on Twitter. You can find me over at kesseljunkie.com. That is where I write and sometimes even offer drawings and stuff like that. So, hey, what fun. And here on the Nerd Party Network, aside from the archived show House of Fincher, you can find me on a couple of other archived shows, but more importantly, on a Star Wars-focused podcast called Aggressive Negotiations that I co-host with my friend Matt Rushing. It's a fun little Star Wars thing, not your typical Star Wars show. So that's where you can find me. Tristan, how about you?
You can also find me on Letterboxd under the Insane Robin, also on Twitter under that same name. And you can find me on the network at thenerdparty.com. You can find me under a couple of shows, Nerd Nuptial, which is a general geek podcast that I hosted with my wife. And a lot of it is intertwined with our relationship as well as our baby story. And you can find me on Second Contact, which is a commentary podcast for all of the Lower Decks episodes of Star Trek. And I'm a couple places all over the place. So thank you guys so much for listening. And we really appreciate it. And thank you for opening the door to the House of Nolan. And remember, it's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me.
Swear to me!
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.